On the morning of September 14th, 2007, a 14-year-old boy sat across the breakfast table from his father, ate his meal, said goodbye, and watched his father leave for work. Then he went upstairs. He took every penny of money he had ever saved. Birthday money, pocket money, years of small amounts set aside without anyone thinking much of it. He counted it, around 200 pounds. He did not pack a bag. He did not take a change of clothes. He did not take his phone charger. He did not leave a note on the kitchen table, or a message on his phone, or an email in someone's inbox. He walked downstairs, stepped out of the front door of his family home in Doncaster, and closed it behind him. Nobody in that house has seen him since. That was 17 years ago. Andrew Gosden would be 33 years old today. His case is still open. His family is still waiting. And the question of what happened after he closed that door on a Friday morning in September 2007 has never, not once in all the years that have passed, been answered. To understand why this case has stayed with so many people for so long, you have to start not with the disappearance itself, but with who Andrew was before it. Because Andrew Gosden was not a teenager who fit the profile of someone who vanishes. He was not a troubled kid. He was not on the radar of social services or school counselors. He was not the kind of young person that the people around him had been quietly worrying about. He grew up in Doncaster, a city in South Yorkshire in the north of England. He lived with his parents, Kevin and Glenys, and his sister Charlotte. By every account, the family was stable and loving. No history of anything that investigators would later look back on as a warning sign. No documented crisis. No pattern of running away or acting out that anyone could point to. At school, Andrew stood out for one particular reason. He was intellectually gifted in a way that went beyond what most of his teachers were used to seeing. He had a deep and consuming passion for mathematics. Not the routine kind that gets you through exams, but the kind that pulls you further and further in until the problems you are working on are the kind that most adults cannot follow. He was working through material years ahead of where a 14-year-old was supposed to be. His teachers noticed. They thought about what that mind might become. He also loved philosophy. He read widely across subjects that most teenagers his age would not encounter for years. He played guitar. He had a deep interest in anime and manga, particularly a series called Death Note, a complex, dark, layered story built around questions of mortality, justice, power, and what it means to hold the fate of another person in your hands. The series had tens of millions of fans worldwide. For Andrew, it was clearly something he had thought about seriously, not just consumed passively. He was quiet. He was introverted in the particular way that very intelligent, very inward people often are. More comfortable sitting with an idea for an hour than sitting in a room full of people. His parents described him as gentle, not withdrawn in a way that worried them. Not angry, not closed off, just someone who lived a lot of his life inside his own head and who seemed, from the outside, to be doing fine there. There were no warning signs in the days before September 14th, 2007. Nobody in Andrew's life, his parents, his teachers, any friend who might have been paying attention, has ever been able to identify a moment in the weeks leading up to that Friday when something shifted. No argument that escalated. No falling out at school. No change in his behavior that anyone clocked as significant. No withdrawal, no darkness, no goodbye that was phrased in a way that took on meaning only afterward. Whatever Andrew had decided, and whenever he had decided it, he had kept it so completely to himself that the people who knew him best never saw it coming. The morning of September 14th began the way Friday mornings in that house always began. Kevin Gosden, Andrew's father, was up and getting ready for work. Andrew came downstairs in his school uniform, gray trousers, school shirt, the ordinary clothes of an ordinary school morning. They had breakfast together. Kevin would later tell investigators that everything was normal. Andrew seemed fine. There was nothing. Kevin said goodbye to his son, walked out the front door, and headed to work. He had no reason to stop at the door and look back. After Kevin left, Andrew did not leave for school. What he did instead, investigators would piece together in the hours and days and weeks that followed. He went to wherever he kept his savings, and he took all of it. Every pound. He did not leave behind even a small amount. Something you might do if you were planning to come back and needed a little for when you returned. He took everything. Then he left the house. He made his way to Doncaster railway station. At the ticket counter, he bought a train ticket, a one-way ticket, to London, King's Cross. Sit with that for a moment, because it matters more than almost anything else in this case. Andrew Gosden was 14 years old and intellectually advanced beyond his years. He knew exactly what he was purchasing. A one-way ticket is not what you buy when you are going somewhere for the day and coming back. It is not what you buy if you intend to return. A 14-year-old who loved mathematics and philosophy and had spent a lot of time thinking about the nature of things would have understood, at a level that required no special intelligence, that a one-way ticket meant something specific. He bought it anyway. He boarded the train at Doncaster. He found a seat. And somewhere in the 200 miles between Doncaster and London, the life he had always known receded behind him. Andrew arrived at King's Cross station at approximately 12:30 in the afternoon. King's Cross on a Friday lunchtime is relentless, thousands of people moving in every direction, commuters heading out early for the weekend, tourists with luggage, students, families, the constant human current of one of the busiest stations in the country. Everyone with somewhere to go, everyone part of a world that continues without interruption. The station has cameras throughout. That afternoon, those cameras found Andrew. The footage shows him walking through the main concourse. He is in his school uniform, the gray trousers and school shirt from that morning, the same clothes he had been wearing at breakfast with his father a few hours earlier. He has nothing in his hands, no bag over his shoulder, no backpack, no luggage of any kind, nothing that suggests he had planned for more than the next few hours. He looks calm. That is the detail that everyone who has ever seen that footage comes back to. He does not look frightened. He is not glancing around nervously. He is not moving fast or looking over his shoulder. He is not crying or trembling or showing any outward sign that anything unusual is happening. He walks through one of the busiest train stations in England with the steady, unhurried pace of someone who knows exactly where they are going. Then he walks out of the station. And that is it. That is the last confirmed image of Andrew Gosden that has ever been found on any camera, in any database, in any system anywhere. After he walked out of those doors, he stopped leaving traces. His 200 pounds, every penny of his savings, left no record in any financial system after that day. No cash machine withdrawal, no transaction of any kind that could be tracked. His mobile phone existed. Investigators knew he had one, but no activity on it could be confirmed after he left Doncaster. London is one of the most heavily surveilled cities on Earth. Cameras on every major street, every tube station, every bus, every junction that matters. And yet Andrew Gosden walked out of King's Cross station on a September afternoon and left no further trace on any of them. Not a single confirmed frame. No witness came forward who could be verified. No one he knew received a message from him. He walked out of King's Cross at 12:30 on September 14th, 2007, and was never seen again. That evening, the call came. Andrew's school had tried to reach his parents during the day. He had not arrived. Kevin and Glennie's waited. An hour, then longer. The waiting that starts as inconvenient and becomes something else entirely as the hours pass and the phone stays quiet and the front door stays shut. Then it was late. Then it was too late to keep waiting. Kevin called the police. The initial response was measured. A teenage boy who skips school and does not come home on a Friday is, statistically, almost always somewhere safe. Police hear these calls regularly. They took the report. They told the Gosdens to wait and see. Then the details landed. The one-way ticket. Every penny gone. The school uniform still on when the cameras found him at King's Cross 6 hours after he had been sitting at the breakfast table in Doncaster. No bag. No note. No contact with any friend or person his family could name. A 200-mile journey that had apparently been planned, quietly and carefully, without anyone around him noticing. Investigators began to understand that this was something different. When a teenager runs away, there are almost always traces. A friend who got a message, even a vague one. Clothes taken, because wherever they are going, they know they will need to get changed eventually. a reason that can be identified, a conflict, a relationship, a person they are heading toward. Even in cases where the teenager does not want to be found, there is usually a thread, a direction, something to start pulling. Andrew had left nothing like that. He had money and a destination and a journey already made, and no apparent plan for what happened after he stepped out of King's Cross. No friend in London that investigators could identify. No address he had ever mentioned. No connection to the city beyond the ticket he had bought. The Metropolitan Police were contacted. The King's Cross footage was reviewed and confirmed. Andrew had been there. He had walked through. He had walked out. After that point, nothing. No direction. No camera that picked him up. No trail. His photograph went out. A school photo, dark-haired, open-faced, looking directly into the lens the way school photos always catch you. Appeals were broadcast. Newspapers ran the story. Television programs featured the case. The response brought in calls, reports, suggestions. Every one was followed up. Not one could be confirmed. Andrew Gosden was officially listed as a missing person. He has remained on that list for 17 years. Over those years, people who cared about this case, investigators, journalists, members of the public who found it and could not let it go, put forward theories about what happened to him. Each theory has something to recommend it. Each one also has something it cannot explain. And that gap between the evidence and the answer is where this case has lived, unresolved, for all this time. The most discussed possibility is that Andrew planned his disappearance and has been living, somewhere, under a different identity. The evidence for this reading is real. The one-way ticket is not bought by accident. The withdrawn savings. The calm, deliberate walk through King's Cross. None of this looks like a panic. It looks like someone who made a decision, committed to it, and carried it out without flinching. If you were going to argue that Andrew chose this, that he walked away from his life intentionally, you could build a reasonable case from those facts. But the part that does not hold is what comes after. Andrew was 14 years old with 200 pounds and no visible network in London. 200 pounds disappears in a city like London in a matter of days, a week at most if you are living as cheaply as possible. A 14-year-old in England cannot legally work, cannot rent a room, cannot open a bank account, cannot do almost any of the things that sustain a life over time. Not without documentation, not without an adult involved somewhere, not without leaving some kind of record. For Andrew to have survived undetected in London, or to have moved elsewhere and built an entirely new existence for 17 years, that requires a chain of circumstances and a level of sustained invisibility that no one has ever been able to map out convincingly. The second possibility is that Andrew came to harm in London after leaving King's Cross. A 14-year-old boy, alone, in a school uniform, visibly without an adult and carrying cash, with no plan and no one waiting for him. A major city presents real dangers to a child in that situation. Exploitation, violence, the particular cruelties that can find young, isolated, vulnerable people. Investigators have never been able to rule this out. But there is no evidence, not a body, not a piece of clothing, not a forensic trace connecting Andrew to any crime that occurred in London or elsewhere in the days and weeks after his disappearance. 17 years of investigation have produced nothing physical. That absence does not prove he is alive, but it has left this avenue permanently inconclusive. The third theory has been the most publicly debated and, for Andrew's family, the most painful. Some people who have studied this case closely have pointed to his deep engagement with Death Note, a series built around characters who reason their way through profoundly dark philosophical territory, who arrive at conclusions about mortality and choice and the nature of existence through the kind of sustained, serious thinking that Andrew was clearly capable of. The suggestion has been made that a highly intelligent, deeply philosophical teenager, working through ideas about life and death more seriously than most adults ever do, might have arrived somewhere very dark. Andrew's family has rejected this interpretation clearly and consistently. They have said he engaged with Death Note the way millions of teenagers engaged with it, as a story he found compelling, not as something that defined his inner state. And crucially, There is no evidence. No note, hidden or otherwise. No message. No search history. No documented conversation. No evidence of any kind, beyond the fact that he liked the series, that supports this reading. It is inference layered on inference, and Andrew's parents have asked repeatedly and reasonably that people stop making that inference publicly. The fourth possibility is the one Kevin Gosden has returned to, again and again, in all the interviews he has given and all the years he has spent keeping his son's name in the public eye. He believes Andrew is alive. That, for reasons nobody yet understands, he chose to walk away. Kevin has spoken about this with a particular kind of steadiness. The steadiness of a person who has decided that hope is the only thing available to him that does not destroy him completely. He has said publicly that if Andrew is alive and has reasons for staying away, he wants him to know that the door is open, that there is no judgment, that he just wants to know his son is okay. Sitting with that, a father holding on to the belief that his son chose to leave and choosing not to be angry about it, choosing only to keep the door open, is one of the harder things about this case, because the alternative is grief without an ending, loss without a body, without a confirmed moment, without the terrible but necessary closure that at least tells you where to put your pain. Kevin Gosden has had to hold both possibilities at once for 17 years, the hope and the loss. Neither one resolved, neither one allowed to win. The investigation into Andrew's disappearance has never officially closed. His case has been reviewed multiple times, featured on national television, circulated across the internet in waves as new generations of true crime readers find it and find themselves unable to move past it. His age-progressed images have been released at intervals. What he might look like at 20, at 25, approaching 30, now in his early 30s. Andrew Gosden would be 33 years old today. If he passed you on the street, you would not know him from the school photograph that has been circulated for 17 years. Dozens of reported sightings have come in. Every single one was investigated. None were confirmed. In 2023, 16 years after he disappeared, UK investigators formally highlighted his case again as one of the most significant unresolved missing persons cases in the country. A renewed appeal was made. People were asked, again, to come forward with anything they knew or had seen. Nobody came forward with anything that could be confirmed. There is one detail in this case that has never left investigators alone. One detail that sits at the center of everything and will not give up what it means. Andrew bought a one-way ticket, not because a return was too expensive, not out of confusion or carelessness. He went to the counter, asked for a one-way ticket to London King's Cross, paid for it with his own saved money, and got on the train. A boy who loved mathematics and philosophy. A boy whose entire intellectual identity was built around thinking carefully about things, chose, with full understanding of what it meant, not to buy a journey home. He also took every pound he had. Not most of it, every single one. He left his phone charger in his bedroom. He left his clothes in his wardrobe. He left everything that would have mattered if he was planning to come back. And he sat across the breakfast table from his father and said a completely ordinary goodbye. No extra moment, no lingering look at the house as he left. Nothing that Kevin, in 17 years of turning that morning over in his mind, has ever been able to point to and say, "There, that was the sign I missed." Just breakfast. Just goodbye. Just a door closing on an ordinary Friday morning. And then nothing. Andrew Gosden left his home in Doncaster on September 14th, 2007. He was 14 years old, in his school uniform, carrying 200 pounds and nothing else. He bought a one-way ticket to London. He walked through King's Cross Station, calm and unhurried and utterly alone, and the cameras recorded him one final time. Then he walked out of the frame. He would be 33 years old today. His father is still looking. His case is still open, and the question at the center of it, the question that has not moved in 17 years of searches and appeals and age-progressed images and dead ends and quiet moments in a house in Doncaster that has never quite felt the same since that Friday morning, is exactly where it was the day it started. What happened to Andrew Gosden? If you have any information, the UK Missing Persons Unit is still actively seeking it. His case remains open, and every piece of information, however small it seems, still matters to the people who are waiting. And if this case stayed with you, if you found yourself unable to stop reading, then you already know why this channel exists. Real disappearances, real families, real questions that have never been answered. Subscribe to the Crime Vault. We will be back with the next case.